So we bought this about 3 years ago, and at the time that we bought it, it had been vacant for over 20 years. There was a fire in there about 20 years prior, and it was never fixed up. So it was in really rough shape.
Yeah, the floors were still dirt. There was no plumbing or electricity. The windows were boarded up. So it was a really fun project to work on because we got to start kind of from scratch. So this is what it looked like when we bought it. Oh, it's got some graffiti in the back here. We were happy to find out that that was a back door. When we had to empty the space out before it started getting fixed up, we were, just responsible for hauling out all the trash.
Demo day.
And all the debris. It was fun. Oh yeah, that's me looking at the ceiling.
We made art in here for about 2 years before Angelica started making all of her artwork at our house because it was just easier. And at that point, I took the opportunity to move all of my music gear out of the basement into the above ground space. It's my first time ever playing music above ground in my house. And that was about 1.5 years ago.
That's when you moved all the music stuff here.
Yeah, and since then it's been mostly a music studio. It's where we recorded our last album and where I mixed it.
And so it's turned into a music and art studio. Yeah, I was in grad school for an MFA in painting and an MA in visual and critical studies. So I just graduated this past May with 2 masters. And Ryan just handed me some photos. Yeah, it was such an awesome and sort of like unexpectedly profound experience. I've been wanting to go to art school since I was a teenager, but I just didn't have the courage to go for it until after Ryan's accident in my mid-20s.
Yeah, so a lot of the recording happens over here, and a lot of the song creation and set practices happen over here, which is nice because for shows, we kind of joke that we just remove ourselves from the larger space station.
Yeah, this is my station. Up here is sort of a new part of my setup, and it's kind of a visual equipment area. I've got a video mixer, a video synthesizer, the Etc. by Critter and Guitari, and then I've got a media player that I load video that I've shot onto, and I mix it in with the video of the video synthesizer, which is audio reactive and directly plugged into our audio. This is my music notebook. I like to document everything. It's probably like one of the leftovers from working in a lab is like I document everything to the point where sometimes I have too many notes to like find what I'm looking for. But I have like everything documented, all of my patterns.
The handwritten sequences of every song just in case all of the backups fail.
Yeah, I did have that happen once. I turned on my drum machine and all the memory was just gone. It's like the worst nightmare. So since then, I have it written in a notebook, all my patterns, and I also have them in spreadsheets. It's about how much chill I have.
Yeah, so I have two stations. This is my live station, and this is my studio station. Everything in the studio station is pretty heavy and old, temperamental, so it really stays put and comes into play when we're making an album. But for the most part, I'm over here these days when we're doing set practices and writing new material. I'm using really just these three synthesizers, and this is the same format and the same formation that we're in for shows. And then over here is my piano, which has yet to make an appearance on an actual album. This is a Prophet synthesizer. It's a new addition to the family.
Yeah, so pretty much all the songs that we play, they start out on that piano that Ryan says hasn't made it on an album yet. They're like just really gentle, beautiful songs. And then I come in.
I just get amped up.
We got married a year after we moved to Colorado. Ryan proposed to me just a couple months before we moved out.
Yeah, I was 23. No, 20.
I was 23.
You were 23, I was 23. So after we were in Colorado for a few years, we realized that we'd kind of accomplished all of our goals of becoming adult professionals. I finished grad school, I was teaching English, Angelica was doing well in the lab, but it didn't feel right. It wasn't what we thought it was going to be. And so we decided to move back to Michigan to become artists, kind of revert in a way to our previous selves when Angelica was mostly drawing and I was mostly playing music. So we moved back to Michigan. And 2 weeks later, Angelica was on her first business trip. She was in San Francisco, and I was on my way home from my first day at Olivet College, and I stopped on I-69. It was a pretty beautiful, sunny, blue Monday, August afternoon, and I was turning the dial on the radio when the next thing I know, I was just spinning. And it felt and sounded like a bomb had gone off. I had really no idea what was happening. And the next thing I know, I was looking down and there was just blood all over. My pinky was dangling off my hand. And I wasn't sure what to do. I wasn't sure if I should call the police or call my dad or my mom. And before I could make that decision, I heard some people talking outside my door. I heard a man say that they couldn't move me because of my spine. And then I heard a woman say, but his car is going to blow up. And then at that point, she opened the door and I saw that she was wearing a soldier's uniform. And that was a really, really powerful experience for me. I just immediately kind of felt safe. And she asked if she could pull me out of the car, and I said yes. And she pulled me out and brought me to the side of the road and kind of blocked my vision from what had just happened, which was that a semi going 70 miles an hour hit the person behind me without braking. And he basically flattened their car, killed the driver, severely injured his wife, severely injured me and the people in front of me. I was really lucky because there was a National Guard convoy, just coincidentally, 5 or 6 cars ahead of us, and they all hopped out, and that's who opened my door, is this National Guards woman. And she immediately, along with some of her people, started performing some life-saving medical attention on all of us. I was driven to the hospital. It was really difficult to breathe. I was mostly concerned about trying to get in touch with Angelica, but her phone was off. And I was in the hospital for a few hours before I was able to really be seen because so many people had been so badly hurt. But by the time the doctors got to me, they had overlooked that I had internal bleeding and my entire abdomen was full of blood. So that by the time I went into surgery, they were concerned that I wasn't going to make it, and that if I did make it, I wouldn't have all of my organs coming out. I still wasn't able to talk to Angelica before I went in for surgery, and she had to fly back from California. Not sure if I'd be alive when she got home.
Yeah, that day I was on my very first business trip. I was in San Francisco. I was on a business meeting, and when I got out, I had missed 81 phone calls. And so I ended up, I don't even remember which parent it was. I was talking to one of the parents. And they just said, that Ryan's in surgery and he might not make it. We got the fastest flight home, which wasn't till which was red eye. So I didn't get back till the morning, but it was so long. It felt like forever. Yeah, and then Ryan wasn't totally there when I got there. He was, out of it. He was in ICU.
Yeah, I was in ICU for a few days, and then I was moved into a different room where I stayed for another few days. And I'd never experienced anything like that. It was confusing and disorienting, but at times it also had this kind of serene and blissful quality to it. I knew that I had almost died, and being alive felt it felt more special than it ever had.
Yeah, it definitely became a sort of a turning point, I think, in both of our lives. It was that moment where all the sort of the things that you worry about, all the daily stuff, none of it mattered. And it just mattered that we were alive and that anything could happen at any moment. And that whole first year was super difficult. I was working and Ryan was recovering.
Yeah, so that was one of the most difficult parts of the accident, besides the physical trauma, which basically entailed they had to open my abdomen up and remove a lot of my organs, which were lacerated, along with my arteries. And they had to stitch those back together, put them all out on a table, and then repack them into my abdomen. And so that took about a year to heal and to adjust to. But on top of that, I wasn't able to return to work, and I had finally found work that I enjoyed and that was meaningful in teaching. And that really destroyed me more than any of the physical impact. Losing my identity, losing a sense of value. I was essentially a patient for a year. And one of the things I dreaded the most was people asking me, "What do you do?" Because I couldn't really answer. So I didn't go out much apart from going to the doctors and going to all of these different lawyers that I had to end up starting to see. In part because my insurance company stopped paying for all of my medical care really soon after, which meant we had really significant bills piling up, which meant Angelica had to continue to work and travel across the country,
which that in itself was really difficult. I became really anxious about traveling. My anxiety would just skyrocket. I just was certain that any time that I left, something was gonna happen, and that I wouldn't get to see Ryan again. So really after that first year, we decided to do a change of course correction, if you will.
I started painting just as a way to try and hang out with Angelica more, rather than just watch TV. And I was looking for something new to do. I had been unable to really reconnect with my previous modes of creation in the forms of writing poetry and fiction and music. I felt like I was still too raw emotionally to produce anything that I was either comfortable with or that wasn't just similarly too raw. And Angelica was like, "Why don't you just start painting?" And there was no expectation. She gave me some of her old equipment, some canvases, and was just like, "Have fun, go at it." And I can still vividly remember the feeling the first time I spread this really beautiful peachy pink color across a canvas. It was transformative. It really sent just kind of this wave of tingles through my body that I had only really ever felt with music. And I just couldn't stop. For that whole next year, I just couldn't stop painting. I made close to 100 paintings in the following year. And by the end of that, I felt more like myself than I had in years. And as a result of that, I was able to start writing music again. So I was, right around 2015, 2016, I just started being able to write music again.
Yeah, and that's when we moved into our first house. And we just bought a house. Ryan was starting to play music again. We were on the up and up.
Things were finally going well. The dust was settling. Our families were having some sighs of relief. So about a year after Angelica introduced me to painting, I was finally feeling like I was starting to recover. My identity was coming back. And then we got really, really amazing news, which was that we were gonna have a baby. And we had just bought this house that we had kind of bought so that we could start a family, and that was really everything that we were going for. That was the plan, and it felt like we had.
Yeah, I had enough rooms so that we could have an art room, a music room, the regular rooms, and a kid's room. But when I'm sorry, I haven't shared this. But when we went in to the doctors to listen to the heartbeat, we found out that I had like an abnormal pregnancy, and that I was going to be miscarrying in a few days, or like within the week or something. And so that was really devastating news to hear. And after that, because it was kind of complicated and abnormal, I had to go into the doctors or the hospital every week to get blood tests for about a year. So it's just kind of like a repetitive act of going in, and also at the same time kind of retreating and isolating, kind of like maybe similar to how Ryan had after the accident, especially since pregnancy loss isn't something people technically, they often talk about. It's kind of it's a quiet thing. It was around that time that Ryan was playing music, and very much in the way that I think he needed painting to kind of like recover. I found music. Ryan invited me in to play music with him, and he bought me like a little drum machine and sampler, and I just started making music, and it was fantastic. It was like the best thing ever. It's a wholly different relationship that I have with it than I do with painting. That kind of, it was freeing, and it was like another way for us to connect.
Yeah, it was like we found a new language.
Yeah, it was really like, it's really complicated because these are some of like the saddest, most difficult moments, I think, of our lives. Yet they are like the reason that we're doing all the things that we're doing. I ended up also going to grad school and pursuing a lifelong dream of going to art school since, I'd been a teenager, and I don't think I would have done that or pursued music, if we had ended up having a family. So I am really grateful for kind of where we are, and I think the difficult moments also really inform like a lot of the things we're making, where we're coming from, and hopefully offers a connection point for other people who are likely struggling or going to struggle at some point in their lives, because the human experience is, that's just part of it, from my perspective.
Yeah, we hope to be able to connect with people through our art and music, but first and foremost, it's a therapy for us. And there's something so therapeutic and healing about being able to translate your inner private experience into a beautiful external experience. It's so cathartic and cleansing and healing, and I'm so lucky that we get to do that together.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it any better.
But yeah, it comes from a difficult place. When we went in to record our latest album, Meditations, really all of this was at the forefront. It was what we were thinking about. A few weeks before we started recording, we realized that we were failing at actually meditating. We were we were trying to like listen to meditations and create a silent space, and just feeling like we were failing and not getting it, or not able to create that sense of peace. And then we realized that we're there when we're playing music. That's when we're kind of in our bliss.
When we're making things.
Yeah.
And I think that like the repetitive act of painting or of making music, I think that's a form of meditation, on its own.
future.